Kansas City is the primetime team this year, and we're going to talk all about it today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Chiefs. We really do appreciate it, and this is your daily podcast covering the Kansas City Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you for always making Locked On Chiefs your first listen. Don't forget, we're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube as well. I am Chris Clark, your host from Chiefs Corner. That guy over there is Ryan Tracy from NFL 33 and Rogue Analytics and RGR Football, lots of different places. Lot to talk about today when we start looking at this schedule a little bit more. We already talked about it last week when it first came out, but we do want to get into some of the best games of this football season. What is the biggest surprise game? We're going to get to that later in today's show. What are some of the favorite matchups that we really like going into this show? And what is the best games of 2025? Thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate it. And if you want more, you can go find us on our text line. And that is
357 87 81.
There you go. Didn't have that right in front of me. Appreciate that. When we look at this, the best games of 2025, this is going to be fun because you start looking at some of the premier matchups. And one of the biggest things, and we talked about this when the schedule came out, was that Kansas City was in all these primetime games early on in the season. I think they are the first team in league history, from what I read, to have 5 primetime games in the first 8 weeks.
That's crazy. I mean, winning helps, right? I mean, everybody wants to be a winner. Everybody wants to beat a winner. And I think that's probably what this really says the most is there's no more attraction, whether you love them or hate them in the league right now than the Chiefs. I would say even more so than the Eagles. Am I crazy?
I wouldn't say so. I think that the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. Congratulations to them. They obviously beat the Chiefs and made it pretty handily. Not even a game in the Super Bowl. But Kansas City has been there 5 times in 7 years. And, I mean, it's what it is right now. Everybody wants to play the Chiefs, and everybody gets up for playing the Chiefs. I would say that the Eagles probably deal with that as well. I don't know that I would say that they deal with it as well as Kansas City does, because I think if you look at their records, generally speaking, early on in the season, they're not really prepared as well as they end up getting to be as the season goes on. But, at this point, they're the Super Bowl champs. All that matters is you win the last game.
That really is what it comes down to. And in fact, it earned Nick Sirianni a new contract here just recently. And I think that still foreshadows, despite the fact that I think America's team really is the Chiefs at this point, that the first major game, the best game to watch, is that rematch for me. And I know it's kind of like average, everybody's like, oh yeah, of course you're going to watch the Super Bowl rematch. But no, like there's a lot of hurt feelings and unfinished business out of getting your butt handed to you in that Super Bowl that I think makes this really compelling, because there is that advantage. And you do want to see them, because honestly, we'll see what all the odds makers make, but these teams should be the 2 favorites to go back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And I agree with that 100%. This is going to be a fantastic game by the Eagles, or for the Eagles and the Chiefs. The crazy thing is we talk about, I said at the very beginning of the show, 5 games in prime time in the first 8, and the Eagles isn't one of them. That's the crazy.
It is kind of weird, isn't it? But that's okay. I want to take the concentration. Half the country can watch it. Doesn't matter to me. I want the back and forth. Like, this is for the Chiefs, the guys that are returning, and we all know that there's a lot of churn on the roster every year. But for the guys that are returning, this is going to be like, hey, you know what? We didn't forget that. This is going to be a punch back, kind of get a little bit of revenge type thing. They're going to say it's not. All up and down, all week long, all preseason. They're going to say, oh, it's no big deal. It's just another game. It's the second game of the season. Doesn't mean anything. Yes, it does. That's a lie.
Yeah. It's crazy, and it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out, because the Eagles, while they don't play well early in the season, they're going to be ready for that game. It's a Super Bowl rematch, and obviously they play week 1, and they're going to start off the season with, hopefully on their part, a win. And that they want to win against Kansas City in Kansas City, because it is a home game for the Chiefs.
I can't disagree. There's also another home game, and I think this one might even be bigger because this counts more significantly. I think some thin margins over the last couple of years. We all know the marquee matchups, but the one that I think sneaks up on Chiefs fans in particular, but maybe the whole league, is the Chiefs versus Ravens. That is going to be a battle that's going to have significant impact, I think, down the stretch and for seeding purposes come the postseason.
I laugh because it's another game that isn't primetime.
Right?
I mean, I'm just sitting here looking at the schedule. I've got it off to my left, and I'm sitting here looking at it. Every other game they play is primetime in the first couple of weeks, except for they have back-to-back primetime games against the Jaguars and Lions. And the two of the biggest games in the first 8 weeks aren't even on primetime.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. The Ravens game from last year was a hallmark game. I mean, that was such a huge game for the entire season, and the way it ended and the controversy that people want to try to make out of that game, it's going to be a good one. I don't know. I look at this, and honestly, I don't know that I say that that's my favorite game of the first 8. My favorite game is going to be the Lions, because that's a team that I think is continuing to get better and better and better. And I think they struggled last year when they lost Aiden Hutchinson. They'll have him back this year. Mm-hmm. And I do think that this team is going to be somebody that is going to challenge the Eagles for the NFC chance to go to the Super Bowl.
Well, my favorites are I'm not going to put those out until after we come back from the break.
I meant best. I didn't mean favorite. I meant best. Sorry.
Okay. I thought we were shifting there.
Nope.
I think the other best matchup is a team that got off to a rambling start last year. And if it's true, if lightning can strike twice and they really are what they think they are, we'll know by October 27th, right? When we go into this ball game, another primetime game. But I think the most interesting one is going to be the Washington Commanders against the Chiefs, because it is an established offense versus what are you going to do this year that's different? How are you going to emphasize your quarterback in a different way that doesn't maybe allow him to get hit as much, et cetera, et cetera? There's new weapons in there. It's going to be dynamic. And I think if they live up to what they're projecting, this could be a much bigger matchup than it seems right now.
Yeah, it could be huge. And if the Commanders are able to take a step forward from what they did last year and build on what they did last year, it's going to be a phenomenal game. I'm really looking forward to. I mean, the first 8 weeks, 9 weeks of this season is just ridiculous for Kansas City. Between primetime games and who they're playing, it is a marquee matchup just about every single week for the most part. Every other week they don't have maybe a marquee matchup. And it's funny, most of the teams that don't have a marquee matchup are on primetime somehow. I don't understand how that works, but it is what it is. When we get back, we're going to talk about the favorite matchups that we're really looking forward to watching coming up next.
The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers the highlight-worthy performances, major momentum swings, and the can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never a better time to get into the action. FanDuel makes that super easy to stay in the game before the tip-off and when it's live. With player props, performance trends, as well as same-game parlays, fans have more ways to play than ever before and to win big. All you got to do, especially if it's an injury night or something is crazy going to happen, you can get into the action right away. If you've got a read on who's heating up because of it, right now you can get on the same game parlay. Easy, and you can win big with it. If you're new to FanDuel right now, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If that bet wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA.
When we start looking at this schedule and we start looking at some of the favorite matchups that we have, to me, I understand, you look at the Bills game, you look at the Ravens, those are always going to be big matchups. They're probably going to play them just about every year, considering that's who generally is going to win those divisions. But to me, this goes back to the team that they've had their number a lot over the past couple of years, and it's the Chargers game 1. That's one of my favorite matchups. It's not necessarily, I don't like it because of the location. I actually dislike it a little bit because of the location. It would be higher. It would be much more exciting for me if it was a Chargers home game or a Chiefs home game than a game in Brazil. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate that the international fans are going to get to see it, but this is a game that deserves to be seen by their fans in their home stadiums.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's always a beat 'em up. And I think this year in particular, as they shift philosophies a little bit farther to the conservative in Almost said San Diego. Sorry, folks. It's just going to stick for a long time. I can't tell you anything else. I think it's an intriguing matchup that I think, especially early, is going to be very difficult to deal with. It's going to be kind of a jab, counter kind of thing. And I do think the Chiefs are going to be all right, but they are going to get run at a lot. I'm really eager to see the difference between that game and then what is game 14 on December 14 when the rematch happens. But for me, the favorites, obviously, I love playing the Bills. Like you said, that is a bread and butter game, right? Like you want to have that. The other one for me is I think the most up-and-comer, maybe the team that ends up giving the Chiefs more of a run for the division than the Chargers do, is the Denver Broncos. And both those games are post-bye. So my favorite one is going to be, give us your best shot. The Chiefs are saying, we play you after our bye week, and we have such a record after bye weeks. You got to bring your best game. So Sean, Bo, figure it out. If you really want to be a contender for this division, you got to show up that week, November 16th, and put out. And I'm intrigued by that. That's going to be one of my favorite games to see.
You know, I'll actually take the Denver Broncos for the second game as another one of my favorite games because it's on Christmas. And the reality is when you look at the schedule and you look at the way things are set up, we don't know exactly when the last game is going to be. It's to be determined. It will be a Saturday or Sunday, a week after the Christmas game. But the Chiefs are going to have extra time to prepare for the Raiders. But the whole big thing about that for Christmas Day for me is you get to have a scenario where more than likely you're going to have a pretty good idea of where the division sits at that point. You're going to be able to possibly get to a point where you say, okay, we win this game, we're done. And maybe you can be in almost the exact same boat that you were in last year. I love the Broncos matchup because I think it's going to be fun to see what they look like in week 11. But when you come back and you play them on Christmas, you know it's going to mean a lot more to the Chiefs and to Patrick Mahomes playing at home and playing on Christmas Day and being there, probably getting ready to, at least with the way I'm looking at the schedule, challenging for or locking up the division at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just as some honorable mentions, I like it when old friends come together. So I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what Mike Borgonzi's squad has been able to do for the Tennessee Titans. I have a lot of doubts. I was pretty adamant about, you made a mistake with your number one draft pick there, pal. I don't think the quarterback was worth it. We're going to find out, and they will have evolved by that time. And I am one that, like, whether it's my day job or whatever else happens, like, I like to see organizations send their guys out and let the tree grow. I don't like to see what happens with the Patriots, where guys continually go out and fail and can't really function outside of the Belichick tree, right? This is really intriguing for me because this will be the first time that I think we're going to see direct contrast between the way Brett Veach does things and what Mike Borgonzi's taken and twisted and done his way. Now, I know Ryan Poles has been out for a while as well, but we don't get that direct contact as much because they're an NFC team. So I'm really intrigued to see what happens with Tennessee Titans versus the Chiefs. That's December 21, the week before, or the game before the Broncos.
Yeah, and that'll be intriguing, although I'll be real interested to see where that game is in 2 years versus where it is right now, just because I have a feeling that he's only going to be able to do so much. So you can't, I mean, he's not going to be able to completely change the franchise in 1 year. It'd be great if he can, but that takes an entire organization. So at some point, we'll see whether or not he's able to get that going. It's going to be intriguing, though, to watch and see how he builds his roster and watch and see how it changes over the next couple of years. Because the one thing that you saw was when Veach was getting ready to take control, Kansas City had already gotten a quarterback. Now Tennessee goes in, and I understand you disagree with them. I'm not going to say I agree with the pick, but they go and get a guy that they think is going to be their quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you build that's how you have to look at building your roster. And I get it from the perspective of that is the most important position that you can have. And you don't want to risk losing out if that guy hits and you don't take him.
And that's absolutely fair. That unfortunately is maybe likely what comes down by the time we're having that game. That's what the conversation is going to be about. It's not going to be about L'Jarius Sneed or what happened with the running game or what's going on with defensive backs. It's going to be about the quarterback until the end of that season. It will be focused on him for the entire year.
Yep. And should be. I mean, that's the reality of playing that position in the NFL. That's the reality of, the Tennessee Titans and trying to figure this out. They have to get that position taken care of. And once they get that position taken care of, you can build a team around it. There have been other teams that have gone different directions, but having the number 1 overall pick, you get the best player in the draft. You get a chance to get the best QB. Kansas City's been there, and there wasn't a guy that they felt comfortable with taking. And look how it turned out for them for a couple of years after. But that same guy that they did take number 1 overall ended up being a left tackle that started for them in a Super Bowl win.
The last one that played back-to-back seasons, right? So
yeah.
That'll tell you something.
Yeah, there wasn't a QB to take at number 1 in that draft, and they got a guy that's played for him for several seasons and got them to a Super Bowl win, their first Super Bowl win in quite a long time. So thank you, Eric Fisher, for that. Really appreciate that. When we get back, we're going to talk about the biggest surprise game of the 2025 season coming up next. All right. When we start looking at this, 17 games. What's your big surprise game? What's your biggest surprise game? We've already talked about several that should be good games, several good matchups. But what game do you think could garner the biggest surprise?
I'm drawing the difference here between what is a good game to watch and what's like surprisingly competitive. And I kind of teased it before, but the one that I feel like maybe they have it going right is because they have a strong defense, they have an excellent quarterback, and if they take a step forward in year 2, I really think that one of the surprising matchups could be the Washington Commanders, because it's going to be game 7. The Pies will have started by now. I can't remember, but
it's week 8.
I think it's going to be something that the Chiefs have to deal with. They've gotten more athletic on the defensive side for a reason, especially if Jeff Bossa has to play. One of his roles and one of the things that he has done in college is mirror the quarterback. And if anybody is going to get it, it's going to be the Commanders quarterback. So I think while it seems like it should be a mismatch, the more that I think about the way that they've gone about their offseason, I feel compelled to feel pretty giddy about it being a surprise, tough matchup.
I can get behind that. I think it's going to be a good game. I don't know that I really counted as a surprise, because to me, I think Washington showed that they belong in the conversation last year. So to me, I think that they are going to be a legitimately tough game, regardless of whether or not they really take a big step forward or not. When I look at this schedule and I look at surprise games, it's really hard. I don't think that, there are some games in here that I don't think they're going to be good games. But the vast majority of them are what was that?
We'll talk about those tomorrow.
Yeah. The vast majority of them, I think, are going to be really good games. The one I'm going to be really curious about, though, is week 11, you're coming back from your bye. You played the Denver Broncos. We already talked about that. Week 12, you host the Indianapolis Colts. And if there's a team that is giving Kansas City trouble at times, when they shouldn't, it's always been the Colts. And I'm not going to say it's going to be a surprise game, because I think that the Colts are going to be fantastic this year. But Anthony Richardson is going to have something to prove. That entire offense has something to prove. And it's going to be something that, after what I think is probably going to be a very physical game in Denver the week before, could be a little bit of a surprise, take it on the chin type game for Kansas City if they're not careful.
So how do they guard against that? What if you're in the room and you're right now, like you're just getting ready for OTAs, and we know how Andy likes to carry things through the preseason and camp and on to actual preseason games and then into the early. Like, are you focused? Is it back to basics given the churn on this year's roster? Is it back to, hey, we got to win our division, and then we got to take a couple of games from the AFC? Or is it, we need to be 15-2. You guys need to cross these boxes off. Like, where do you stand?
No, they need to get back to the basics. I think that they need to be back to the basics every single year because it's a different team every single year. And they have different strengths and they have different weaknesses every single year. Right now, this time last year, were we even talking about a situation where we thought that the wide receiver position was going to give Kansas City trouble last year? I mean, I feel really good about it in 2025 too. But the reality is it didn't turn out that way in 2024 because you had injuries and you had a bunch of injuries before you even really got into the third month of the season. So to me, it's one of those things where you have to focus on what you can control and you have to focus on, you set 3 goals. You set 3 or 4 goals. One of them is you have to win in the division. And that's as simple as trying to win every single division game. And the interesting thing, and the thing that drove me nuts last year, and the thing that will continually probably drive me nuts, is I don't expect Kansas City's offense or their desire to change the way they play offense to change very much. And what I mean by that is I don't see Andy putting the pedal to the metal and trying to run people over and trying to blow the score up and do anything like that. So I'm afraid that we're going to be in these cardiac games as long as Andy continues to be the coach in Kansas City. And while I get it to an extent, because it usually makes it to where you feel like you can compete longer into the season and you have the ability to realize, hey, we've been here before, we can do this. They need to get a killer's mentality when it comes to scoring more points, and they need to just put the nail in the coffin multiple different times. There were several different games last year where they should have won and should have won handily, but they let the other team hang around.
I agree with you. And this is where the surprises come in because, in honesty, any game on this calendar could be a surprise game because of that fact. Because you don't nail it down and you leave a couple of nails sticking out of that coffin that you need to get sealed. And I do think from the coach's standpoint, I don't think that's going to change. I agree with you. But from the execution on the field standpoint, I think some of them, especially the vets, are getting a little tired of it. And they should be. Because you don't need that kind of stress in your life when you have the ability to execute better, to take that out of the equation. It comes back to me to drive efficiency for this offense and the ability to take the ball away on defense. Now, the defense gets stops. They've been much better the last 2 years than they were previous to that. But they don't take the ball away as much. Getting stops and taking it back are different. And so I think there's very specific criteria for both sides of the ball to improve on.
Yeah, and that's a big problem. They need to get to the point where they're taking the ball away and they are giving the ball back to the offense on short fields. Kansas City definitely needs to work on getting turnovers bouncing in their direction versus just, having turnovers. Patrick Mahomes had a lot of turnovers early in the season, and some were on him, some weren't. Reality of football is the ball's going to bounce to you sometimes and away from you sometimes. Got to do what you can to keep it going in the right direction. And when I look at this, you look at, games like week 3 and games like week 5, to me, those are games that shouldn't be close. It should be a 2-score game. You're looking at the Giants and the Jaguars. I think Kansas City should be 2 scores better than both those teams. But I would almost bet money that both of those games are within 10 points. You don't have a double-digit win.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll have that argument tomorrow because I disagree a little.
Maybe on the Jaguars. I think you probably should on the Giants, but maybe on the Jaguars, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll cover that tomorrow, folks. Make sure that you're back with us.
Going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be talking tomorrow. We're going to be getting into the worst games of the season, the games that we're not looking forward to, and some of the worst matchups that we can be covering. And that will be on Thursday. Thank you all for listening today. We do appreciate it, and we will talk to you tomorrow.